Here's a question. Do other animals treat you differently in any way because you're pregnant? Do they understand the process? Because obviously they get pregnant too.
You should ask me that question in the actual episode, because it's a very good question.
Okay, I will.
Hi guys, welcome back to another In Bed episode. Today's guest is the vegan activist, otherwise known as Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah, I like being in this bed.
How does it feel to be in bed with a heavily pregnant vegan woman?
I haven't really taken it in. It's similar to just being in bed with a non-pregnant woman, I suppose.
Fair enough.
Except there's the three of us in the bed this time.
Well, there's technically four if we include Kutsu. So your viewers don't really get to see much of you on your channel because you do a lot of kind of like voiceovers.
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of built myself up to be this, like, I mean, it sounds a bit arrogant to say it, but like this sort of omnipotent voice of like the truth that's like guiding everyone towards veganism and trying to help them.
For anyone who isn't yet vegan, it can seem like an unattainable lifestyle. We've been raised to eat animals and most of us have become addicted to their taste. When an action has been repeatedly normalised, it can feel impossible changing to something else. But being vegan in itself is easy. Veganism is just about not exploiting and consuming animals.
I've become like this calm, guiding figure.
Calm, godly figure, apparently.
Apparently so.
I like the confidence, Michael.
Even though I think I realised recently that acting like you know everything when you don't is sometimes dangerous, especially when you end up teaching things that you don't always, like, you don't know necessarily, you just think you know.
Mm-hmm. So for people who aren't familiar with the channel, because there might be some people watching who don't know who you are, can you explain a little bit about the types of videos you make, what sort of content you have?
Yeah, I think I always started with the mentality that a lot of people really want to be vegan. They know it's the right thing to do, mm-hmm. but they don't have the tools to actually make that decision, because in the world we live in, where we're surrounded by animal products in the supermarket and people eating at McDonald's and going to Costa with milk and everything.
Yeah.
It's such a cultural norm that to step out of that and say, I want to do the right thing, people feel really judged and they feel like they're going to make mistakes and they feel like they can't be perfect straight away, so they shouldn't even begin. Mm-hmm. So I think I just want to give people the confidence to realise that, you know, there's a lot of tools and resources available. I try and give people the extra tools and just sort of summarise it in short sort of 5-10 minute videos, mm-hmm. and just show them there's a lot of support out there. You just need to go and ask and sort of inquire and just like look up the links and make friends, you know, like on Facebook and on sort of social media sites, and you know, just get that support behind you, and then just go out there and don't worry about being perfect. Just try your best and just do it.
Because you do find as a vegan that, you know, people say to you fairly often, oh, but you can't be completely vegan, so what's the point?
Yeah.
What do you think of that attitude?
I think we all have the potential to do our best in every situation, every circumstance. Mm-hmm. And like, we know within us if we're not doing our best to do what's right in the situation, because we can't always know everything. We can't always have the best judgment of everything, because our sort of personal bias and our like sort of problems that are going on in our world will cloud our visions, and sort of our egos will make things difficult to like accept if we've been wrong. But we should always just like always have an open mind and like listen to other people trying to correct our mistakes. Mm-hmm. Just realize that we're not always perfect and we can always grow and learn more. And when we learn something new that we need to change, we should take action immediately, not make excuses. And I think if you have that mentality, that's what veganism is to me. It's like not being perfect straight away, but just striving to constantly improve every day and learn new things.
Mm-hmm. So you used to be quite a central figure in what I'd call the London YouTube scene.
Yeah.
And you used to spend like a lot of time down there, sort of socially, I guess. But you seem to have moved away from that in the last sort of 6 months.
Yeah.
What's been happening there?
Oh, it's quite a good story, I'd say. because I went from literally being in sixth form to moving to London, never really knowing any vegans, like, or especially activists. Just a few people I'd sort of turned vegan at school. I never really had a community like to be involved in, not even like in any other way, sort of in school or before then. I was quite sheltered and fairly isolated. So when I moved to London, it was the first chance for me to meet a lot of vegans and make a lot of friends, build up connections, and just sort of show people a side of myself that like was so passionate, and I'd had like a platform to be able to really be as passionate as I wanted to be, and for like an audience and just like for friends to just like bounce ideas and like really express each other. So I got really excited because for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd found my tribe. I'd found like the best friends that I wanted to be like friends with forever. You sort of feel like that at school, but this time it felt a lot more real because we all had this like shared goal, this purpose. And, you know, there's a really colourful bunch. There's all different kinds of people, different ages, different like backgrounds and ideas. And, you know, there's some people at uni, some people who have like full-time jobs doing things, some people are like freelancing. And you get to learn a lot of things. Like I did a lot of sort of sofa surfing after I like left university, just around London, because I'd still like made all those friends. So I spent a lot of time with different people, just like doing podcasts and like hearing their stories, learning things, sharing my stories, and just like traveling about and having adventures. And I think that was like very necessary at that point in my life, because I got out of my system that need to sort of feel accepted in a group and to sort of feel a little bit popular. And I think there was definitely a danger, because when my YouTube started to grow, I felt like more and more people, it felt like, wanted to hang out with me. And I think rather than being a little bit cautious and thinking, are people using me just because they want to sort of take advantage of my like the fact that I can promote their products or their festivals and things. So I just sort of thought, oh, they must be trying to be nice and trying to help me. And I think I misjudged it and thought that every vegan was perfect. So yeah, I think there was a few little mini fallouts with people that made me realize that I need to be a bit more on guard and like make sure I wasn't being used. But I think it was just, I definitely used some people just as like, because I was probably a bit bored at the time. I wanted to just, rather than like really do loads of activism, I wanted to sort of distract myself from that, because maybe it became too difficult at the time to just keep doing it. And I didn't feel fully aligned. So I think that became like a distraction that was like very comfortable. Rather than sort of focusing and like going to saves and doing things like that, because the save movement was a thing back at that time, but I wasn't aware of it. I was too caught up in my own. You hadn't been at that point, No, I was too caught up in just sort of having fun and going to meetups and going to restaurants. And then it did get to the point where I began to see how I might not be using my time as effectively as I could be. Because there were times when there was an Earthlings experience going on in the evening, and there was also, at the same time in the evening, there was like a meet-up at Boxpark or something where people were hanging out and eating food and just like boosting each other's egos and stuff. This isn't to like make personal attacks at anyone, but like that's kind of what I was doing. So I found myself choosing to go to Boxpark instead of the Earthlings experience, and it wasn't that happening once, because once you do it once and like you can justify it to yourself, you keep doing it. It's a constant like process of getting corrupted without realizing it, and other people supporting your decision to just like have fun, because you know, if they have stressful lives, then like it's a nice escape to just have a hang out in like Boxpark or something. There's nothing wrong with that. Like going to meetups, really building up connections it's like it's a very valuable experience, and you can learn a lot of things. But around that time, when I sort of used the opportunity when Emily Bite-Sized Vegan, she came over to Norwich and then London and then Manchester afterwards.
Was that September?
I believe so. Yeah. So I used that time to. I just wanted to sort of like hang out with the communities rather than going to the saves. They'd sort of offered for me to come along to the Essex Pig Save, and I was a bit. I think at the time I wasn't too aware of it, because I didn't even know what the save movement was, so I didn't really have anything. So I just sort of dismissed it and undermined it. But I think looking back, I probably was quite scared, because I knew that it would sort of shake me up in a big way. And
so were you kind of putting it off at that point?
So yeah, I think I was like procrastinating, because I knew that was going to sort of end the distractions. But I kind of went because I was just looking forward to like hanging out in London after Emily's talk with all the London crew that went there, and sort of just having a good time and meeting people at restaurants. But I ended up going to the Essex Pig Save, which was like, it was a big turning point in my life, because I went there and all the things that I thought were important shattered all at once when I looked into the eyes of the pigs. And like, I went into like a big, at the time I called it a breakdown. Now I see it as a breakthrough.
Because I think a lot of people saw that footage of you.
Yeah.
And I think it scared people, actually.
Yeah. But realising all that, it was having all your illusions shattered at once in a really brutal way. And then like 10 minutes later hearing pigs screaming. Yeah, I think it made me realise that what I'd been prioritising was completely the wrong thing, and that I needed to step back from all these distractions in a big way and focus on trying to like look for a new path, because I felt like I was going down the wrong one. So from then I started to just to sort of question people around me and just say like, oh, this is something I've experienced, I've learned, this is so important. And I thought that they'd be like, oh, I should come too, I should learn more, and I thought they'd sort of go on the journey with me. And I very quickly realised that a lot of them became defensive and weren't ready to sort of take that step towards shattering your illusions and reevaluating your priorities. So I sort of realised that this was a journey I had to go alone. And as much as there were people around me supporting, you and like Andrew have been very helpful with that. I sort of realised that there were a lot of things I needed to let go of in order to find the most effective way of promoting veganism. And I think at the time it seemed like, oh, he's just disappeared from everywhere and he stopped doing activism. But it was like I was doing loads and loads of things, and it was so important for me to just step back and just like evaluate everything and think, how can I actually how can I like really help people be vegan in a way that isn't just gonna like there's a sense that you can make veganism sound like this big fun adventure, and that's quite important to like bait people in a little bit. But they need to always know that it's about the fact that animals are being systematically abused in these big Holocaust camps, and they exist, and whether or not you want to look, it's happening. And it's horrible.
I think on some level when certain people go vegan, and I'm probably guilty of doing this at the beginning, you sort of think, well, because I'm not actively contributing towards that suffering, it isn't happening anymore. So for a lot of vegans, even the idea of going to a vigil and having to confront that again, because you confront it when you become vegan, because you realise how horrible the world is and how much cruelty and suffering there is all around you. And so the idea of going to a vigil and kind of like forcing yourself to step into that world again, it just doesn't make that much sense to people, I guess. But what you said just now about how it put everything into perspective for you, is that kind of how you describe it for someone who's kind of apprehensive about going to a save? What would you say to them?
Someone who was scared, I would say everyone's scared, but you just have to imagine that there are beings, and there are billions of them, and they're a lot more scared than you, and they have a lot more reason to be scared than you. And you can run away and shut your eyes off and just like shut your ears and not listen and not look. But they're still there. And unless you come closer and try and help, like Tolstoy says, what chance do they have? And there's a lot of different methods we can use. This isn't to say that the Save movement is the only way of promoting veganism.
No.
We need everything going on at once. But how can you tell someone that's like, ready to be vegan, that, you're lying to yourself, you're not looking at the truth, you're not accepting the truth, if you've never looked at the animals in the eyes that you're trying to save and connected with them and like seen that process? All you're doing is trying to justify and trying to just like prove something you've seen in pixels on YouTube. Because if you've seen like earthlings, it's just pixels. Once you've seen them and smelt them and just like felt their nose, then it becomes so real that your conviction is so much more powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So I wanted to ask about, you were meant to be doing a talk at Vevolution. Was that the end of last year?
I think it was November 5th, because it was the bonfire night time, wasn't it?
Ah, yeah. So this is kind of a gossipy question, but then you didn't end up going in the end. And I don't know if people in the community like knew why you didn't end up going or what happened there.
Yeah, I think I probably wasn't clear enough with both the organisers and the people who went with sort of where I was at. I think at the time I didn't want to make a big scene and make it sound like what I was thinking and what I had to like say was the most important thing. I just wanted to sort of disappear and reflect, because I still wasn't sure. I was still going through this sort of transitional process where I was trying to figure out like what was going on in my head and how I can promote veganism and what I should do and what's the next step. So I was in like a fairly confused state, and I think that ended up resulting in me say like not letting the organisers know what I was thinking, and that's definitely my bad. But I think leading up to it, I was preparing what I was going to say, and I had something in mind, and I started to write something, and like as soon as I went to the save, I realised that what I was going to say wasn't what I needed to say.
Okay.
Because what I was going to say was what people wanted to hear, and I realised that I needed to tell people what they needed to hear.
Okay.
And I realised that by doing that, it was going to cause a lot of potential conflict, and people probably were going to get offended and upset. So I was trying to think of how I can really speak to people in a way that like will make them listen and understand without it being too... because as soon as people shut off and build their defences up, they're never going to listen, and I'll just get kicked off or something. They'll boo me. And that's not like... I'm not scared of being booed, but...
but you want to get the message across.
Yeah, so I think leading up to it, I wasn't fully prepared for what I was going to say. And I think that was a big reason why going wasn't the best idea, because I was a little bit scared that what I was going to say wasn't going to be exactly what I meant. It was just going to be a little bit of a heated moment situation where I felt angry at a time and wrote something down and learnt it and said it, but it wasn't the best thing to say. But on top of that, I was running very low on money at the time, because leading up to that, I'd sort of been going to a few saves, and I'd spent money going to saves that before I just sort of prioritized my money going to meetups and like just food and basic things. But I sort of realised that I should be spending my money travelling to saves and going to bear witness, because I think that was the best use of my sort of time and money. So I'd done that a lot. So I realised that, I'd sort of run out of money to be able to get down to London. I assumed that my like travel would be able to be paid, and the organisers weren't able to cover that. So I just decided that it's probably not the best idea for me to come. I felt like I was being a little bit used, because... I was doing it all for free because I thought, it's good to sort of speak to people and have a big audience. But I think I realised now that, like sort of in the smaller sense with people using you just like for popularity reasons, because if you've got subscribers, then they can get more subscribers.
Yeah.
I started to realise that equally they could use me to get money if they, if they just got me to do a talk and stuff. And like, I've never really... I think once I've been paid to do a talk at a vegan festival, but a lot of the time I just think it's like a public service to give the truth out to people. But now I'm starting to realise that, you have to pay your rent and things, and growing up's been like a big challenge recently of just realising that, you have to earn a lot of money to be able to just like feed yourself and get rent and then bills and taxes and cancel things. So I think it was still like a big learning process of growing up, and that's definitely been something that I've always needed to work on, and people that would use that as a criticism to me, I'd agree with them. I think the danger is a lot of people at the time told me a lot of things that I wanted to hear of and what I needed to hear, and now I think I always appreciate the criticisms. But another thing that sort of contributed to me not going there was my phone and my laptop basically broke around that time. So I wasn't able to... I was a bit worried that I was going to go down to London and get a bit lost because I didn't have a phone. And everything was sort of going wrong in my life, so I just felt very anxious. So yeah, I think I'm kind of glad with how everything turned out, because while I wasn't at Vevolution that day, I ended up going to a pig sanctuary. Okay. This was like a few days after being at like a pig save.
Yeah.
And it really put everything into perspective on a bigger way, because while I knew people were disappointed in me for not speaking to a load of people about veganism, a lot of them already being vegan, you know, to motivate them to activism, I realised that spending time with the animals that I was trying to save and just like really connecting with them, and like being with good company, we went to a like a nice sort of vegan restaurant afterwards, I realised that I'd found what I was always looking for, but in a way that was more in line with how we turn the world vegan. I realised spending time in animal sanctuaries and at pig saves, and also just hanging out with people who aren't doing it just to be popular and make money, people who are doing it just because it's the right thing to do, and they have something inside them that just, it makes it hard for you to sleep at night if you haven't done enough to really help them. That drive, I think, spending time with people like that will do anything and will sacrifice their comfort for justice, I realised that that was what I needed to move forward to. And even though that meant I didn't have as many friends and I wouldn't have as many people who like just wanted to hang out with me or like spend time with me, I realised those people, that didn't matter. And I was quite happy to welcome them to like spend time and like we can learn from each other. But it was just a gradual shift of just like moving apart from people and letting go of things. And
growing up.
Yeah, growing up, definitely. I'm still doing a lot of that.
So because I'm really pregnant now, can we talk about something that's quite controversial in the vegan community?
Yeah.
Let's talk about anti-natalism.
Let's do it.
So what's your opinion of the anti-natalist movement within the community?
I have quite a unique story with this, actually.
Okay, I've not heard this before, so I'm
No,
interested.
you won't have. I've never really spoken about the anti-natalism.
Okay.
And it's going to get controversial.
Oh, no.
So basically, when I first went vegan, I was basically turned vegan. Well, I was turned vegan by Gary Roski, but the first YouTubers I watched were Durin Rider and Freely.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And I mean, Durin Rider, like Harley especially, was very harsh on the whole like anti-natalist, like get a vasectomy. Like he was hardline. He had a lot of good like opinions and good attitudes and things, and he inspired me in some ways. But I think the anti-natalist thing I did take to heart a little bit too quickly without really thinking about it, because it just seemed like he was talking about carving the fuck up, just getting loads of bananas in, and I did that and I felt great. He was talking about veganism and saving the animals, and I did that and it felt great. And then he talked about like fucking get a vasectomy, you'll be happier and you'll be successful, and I was like, well, okay. So I think on Facebook, I had a few friends who were part of these like anti-natalist Facebook groups.
Okay.
And they were like, "Oh, you should check this out. It's really important." And I was like, "Okay, I'll see what they're about." And they, you know, they make some good points if you think about like the environmental side. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, you know, I do care about the environment." So I suppose being like anti-children probably means that I didn't really think about it. This was back in the time when I was acting like I had an authority and like I knew everything, when I just read like a couple of Facebook posts. And a lot of people are at that point just in life. Now I realise there's a lot more to everything than what you read on Facebook. But so yeah, I'd spent with a few people that spent time with these sorts of people, and I realised that there was a lot of bitterness. And when I was going on the Facebook groups, there were people who were like, you could almost just say, "Oh, I've had a baby," and someone would just say, "Oh, you're not a real vegan and you should kill yourself," and they're really horrible people.
Yeah.
To the point where I'd say that's not even the vegan attitude.
No.
To be in the way that they are. And I definitely like now see the argument that we're trying to create a vegan future, but if none of the vegans are breeding, like we've all become child free or whatever they call it.
Yeah, child free.
Yeah, if we create a vegan future and none of us are bred, it just means that we have to constantly work on turning the people who aren't child free, children vegan, without us, and it just makes it a lot harder. Because say, for example, your child can grow up and meet other children and inspire them to change along their journeys.
Yeah.
Jojo's a good example in like London. He's just like a shining beacon of hope for children. And I think,
future,
I think it's good because he's he's been raised in that environment where he understands the ethics, he understands what like the right thing to do is, and by the time he's sort of like 14 and able to like really think about things in like a more mature way, he'll be unstoppable. And I think that's an exciting thing. Children who are raised vegan is a beautiful thing.
One of the arguments from anti-natalists about raising children vegan when you are vegan and having your own biological ones is that, well, you don't know that they won't wake up one day and just start eating animals, and then you've created someone who adds to all the suffering.
Yeah. I suppose that's always a potential thing in the world we live in, but I suppose the challenge isn't, or like the game isn't to just be constantly paranoid that the children are going to get corrupted by the environment.
Yeah.
The challenge is to create an environment where the children will feel comfortable doing what they know is right, and you've given them the space to be able to do that.
And challenging what's happening around them.
And challenging what's happening around them. And I don't know anyone who, like, through being raised as a child would go to a save and then eat pig flesh.
No, I mean, neither do I.
That would be unheard of.
I think it's a really redundant argument, and it's also very negative. And I think even for like the non-vegans who have children, for me it's kind of in the same line of thinking of, you're pregnant, do you worry that your child is going to grow up and become a rapist or a murderer? Because no, but seriously, that's like what I think about. Or like a mass criminal, like a bank robber. Do you ever think about this? No, because you think you can teach your child values. And for me, at least, that comes with, like, not eating animals. It's kind of one and the same. You teach them between right and wrong. Yeah,
I think if you teach them about veganism from early on, they're more likely to be a better person in all the other ways, rather than if you didn't teach them to be vegan and then just kept saying, oh, yeah, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't murder, you shouldn't do all this while you're feeding them dead animals.
Because it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's much more consistent. Yeah.
Teach them to always just think, like, what's the right thing to do, rather than just, like, throwing the cognitive dissonance at them, like, from such an early age, and getting them addicted to things that are going to give them heart attacks and cancers later.
Yeah.
Get them addicted to fruit. That's how you do parenting.
Yeah, Jojo is vegan geezer. Martin's got the right idea. Jojo's little face lights up when he goes into like Lidl or Aldi.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love how he reacts to like a watermelon. It's as if he's been given the world. And that's totally, as you know, how they've used fruit as like a reward system. I remember watching a video about where Martin's talking about that, and I think that's a great idea, because most parents use things like McDonald's or, you know, sweets and kind of really unhealthy things in a reward system. So you switch it up, you make it something vegan, make it something healthy. It's great.
Yeah.
We're going to do that too. Our kid's going to be like fruit addict.
That would be nice. I've heard people say that, I mean, this is even just like my family wise, like my sort of sisters that have children, that they'd never be able to get their child to eat loads of fruit because all they ever eat is pizza, and they can only ever get them to eat pizza. So like surely like you're not gonna be able to feed your child enough, because like if my child just only eats pizza, then your child's probably gonna only crave pizza. I would say to this, I mean, you know it, but I would say like, well, if you don't give them loads of like cheesy pizza, maybe they'll not really know that there's this horrible salty fatty thing that they can have instead, and they'll just be like, oh, fruit's great because it is.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not to say like, oh, never give them pizza, but I suppose there's addictive qualities to all the sort of like animal flesh and secretions.
Yeah, definitely. Our taste buds become
that's not good for children.
No, definitely not. I mean, it's just I think it's just about healthy habits, and you kind of start as you mean to go on. And if you're going to give kids like a lollipop to shut them up, then they're going to always cry and want you to give them a lollipop, for example. So I don't know. I think anti-natalism as a concept, I definitely see all the environmental arguments, and I understand. I've done reading about it, you know, I understand it. I know where they're coming from. But my issue is actually with anti-natalists. Not so much anti-natalism as a concept, but it's
the people. It's
the horrible people. And I know some people would say, oh, but it's the same as, you know, you saying that you have a problem with some vegans that are mean. Yeah. But I mean, the anti-natalists, I mean, a lot of them are just horrible, horrible people. And then they make all vegans look crazy. That's my issue with them.
Yeah.
I was told last week that I'm going to regret not having an abortion.
I suppose maybe, yeah. I was going to say maybe part of their anger and frustration and everything is just the fact that, like, they maybe in some part, I mean, I don't know, like the older ones especially, like maybe at some point in their relationship they've really like not wanted a child, not been ready for a child, but their partner has really wanted a child, and the society or maybe their parents has pressured them into thinking that like their life should just be like you have a child at a certain age after you've left university and you set up a life, and they've wanted to challenge that and like do their own career path and do their own thing. And because of like someone just not giving them that choice and making them feel really trapped, maybe that's sparks some resentment that basically means they hate everyone.
Maybe. They're all different though.
Yeah.
They're all kind of different.
Oh, I mean, they're insane, some of them. I know what you mean. That would be very... If I was pregnant and just like extra sensitive and someone said that to me, I would get really...
It didn't make me angry. I just kind of felt sorry for him.
Yeah, I mean, those who cause suffering are suffering.
Exactly.
Some wisdom. There's some wisdom from me that I stole from someone else.
Well, I think that draws us to a nice close then. Since I'm getting quite tired and I'm getting quite hungry.
I have one last question though.
Okay, go on then.
We said about it beforehand, but Kutsu's here.
Yeah.
Has Kutsu or Pushkin treated you differently since you've been pregnant? Because because cats get pregnant too, and they probably understand like another cat's pregnant and that's like slightly different hormones released or like different behavior. Do you think have they treated you differently in any way? Like, are they more like cuddly with you, or have they been more like
So we share our house with Pushkin and Kutsu, who are both male cats. And then we also live with a female cat called Ditto. And the boys have been pretty much the same, like, throughout my pregnancy.
Okay.
So they're both quite affectionate towards me. And, they've been pretty much the same. But Ditto, funnily enough, has definitely picked up on the change in my hormones. And around the time I got pregnant, even before I realised I was, she started doing some uncharacteristic things around the house. So she started spraying like a tomcat.
Wow.
And so she's done that from the beginning of my pregnancy. And at first I didn't realise the correlation and the timing. But looking back, it's exactly when she started doing it. So I think she must have sensed that, my hormones were different. I think she could tell that I was pregnant. And she's never been particularly friendly to me anyway. She's more Andrew's cat than mine. But she's not she's just not a very people affectionate sort of animal. She kind of likes doing her own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's probably been much colder towards me, I'd say, than usual. And then it's been more the marking of the house, which is not fun. It doesn't smell like tomcats do, but it's like this thick, sticky kind of liquid, which is a bit gross. So I don't know, I guess because the hormones, she sensed smelt the difference in my hormones.
Yeah.
She's wanted to go around and be like, this is mine. This is my female thing. And so she's changed, I'd say. And I'm quite curious to see how they are when the baby's actually here.
Yeah.
I think the boys will be fine, but I think she might be a bit odd. But we'll see. We'll see. You also hear of people getting rid of animals when like babies arrive. That's quite common.
Yeah, I think my sister did this with her dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I definitely won't be doing that. I couldn't even imagine doing that. They're part of the family.
I mean, I suppose it would be like if you had... I don't even want to go... It's like if you had lots of children and then you got another one, you're like, this baby's like so much to deal with, let's get rid of the other three. Well,
it is kind of like that, yeah. But it's it's the species in us, isn't it? That we get a human, like a new human and just replace, the animals. And it's like, oh, you don't really fit into my life anymore. So I'll just remove you because now we have a baby. Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense.
Those are the sort of people who, rather than being like stewards who care for the animals and live alongside them, they're using the animals to like entertain them.
Probably, yeah.
In some like selfish, like, I'll get bored if I don't have a cat to stroke. So they're just using the animal. And once they have a baby, it's just like, I'll just replace rather than, obviously your attitude is better than that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't be getting rid of the cats. They're definitely gonna be like around as this child grows up. So this baby will be like a crazy vegan cat baby. That's what I'm imagining anyway.
Okay. We'll see.
Okay, well, I think, unless you've got any more questions, any more burning questions about animals, pregnancy, anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Well, that draws us to the end of another fun-filled bed episode.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks very much for joining me, Michael. I think this is probably going to be the last episode I film this pregnant, seeing as my due date is in like 4 days. So thanks for joining me. And yeah, see you in the next one, guys.
Bye.
Let's go to the
Nice. Still got this from last year.
The same one?